Welcome to Preferred Lies. I'm Jay Coffin, joined this week by CBSSports.com Steve Elling and our own Rex Hoggard. Mr. Elling, what did the FedEx Cup teach us?
I think it reinforced with red letters what we already knew, that
Tiger's just better than everybody else and it doesn't matter.
The funniest little anecdote of the whole week is when they brought Zach Johnson in on Sunday night, and he'd finished second with Calcavecchia 8 shots back, and Zach raised up his hand and said, "Winner, tied first place, first flight." Because the championship flight is there's only one guy in it, and he's won 4 out of his last 5 to end his season.
Yeah.
And he won 6 in a row to end last year, so I think doing the math, that's 13 of his last 22 starts on the PGA Tour.
Pretty good, isn't it?
60%.
There's a lot of stats that were getting thrown around.
Yeah,
There's 2 that sort of came to my mind. One, he's 41 for 44 with third round leads now. No one closes like that. I mean, there's no one in Major League Baseball that can close like that. The other one is his adjusted stroke average, assuming he's not going to play anymore.
Right.
I'm pretty sure he's not.
Nope.
67.79, which is the exact same stroke average from 2000.
Which was
we all know how
the lowest of all time.
So we can compare this to 2000 now. I mean, the majors are the missing component here. He was only able to get it done once, but
only able to get it
done once, which maybe in his world is a disappointment. You know, I mean, if you look at it, but. Yeah, I think outside of that, this is 2000 all over again, which is amazing. Different swing, different attitude, different life, and we have the same Tiger.
The guy's basically tweaked his swing since he got back from the British Open. Everybody was talking about that last week. He's gone from being flat about like here to being more upright, move the ball closer to his toes, is a little more erect over the ball.
And he was trying to do that at Carnoustie. He was trying to keep the ball low and trying to play that stinger and chase it around. And you're right, he adjusted well, obviously, Southern Hills. And
the BMW tournament, he missed 2 fairways on the weekend, which is about as good as he can play. Butch Harmon, I ran into Butch. He was out following Phil last week in Atlanta, and Butch said the BMW tournament was the best I've ever seen Tiger play.
Ever.
Period.
Which is high praise. Yeah, that's pretty high praise.
He's known the guy since he was a teenager.
Maybe the biggest hole is everyone knew Tiger was the best. It turned out the way it is. That's fine. The one thing that kind of stands out in my mind is the stats that you just read to me. He almost could have gotten away with just playing one of the 4. There's something wrong.
Doesn't that turn this thing into a joke? The fact that can happen?
They probably should stop calling it a playoff, for one thing. That's a marketing thing that would be very easy to fix. And there have been manifold suggestions all along the way. I finally came up with my list. Yeah, exactly. Multiple. Everybody's had them all along the way, and I kind of waited until the end here so I could look back and sort of look at it in its totality.
Which is not like you.
Yeah, usually I'm the first guy to make a knee-jerk overreaction and then sort out the corpses later. So yeah, that's one of there are so many things that they need to tweak, but if you get right down to it, the coffee grounds in the bottom of the cup. Did they deliver what they promised? Better fields at a time of year when nobody cared.
No.
Absolutely. And the rest of it is just ball-peen bodywork. It's not sledgehammers, and it's not heavy overhauls.
There need to be some fixes, but I agree with you. Absolutely. You had the best players going head-to-head. That Monday at Boston was fabulous. Him and Stricker, at the BMW was very, very good. And he kind of sucked the life out of Atlanta. Dead Greens kind of sucked the life out of Atlanta. They can fix those things. I think the biggest fix in my mind, as all along, they got to cut it to 3. Yeah. These guys are not wired to play 4 in a row. Tiger's not going to do it. Phil's not going to do it. Ernie's not going to do it. Cut it to 3. There's no rule book that says it's got to be 4.
Or at least take a week off before the Tour Championship.
That's another option.
One of the suggestions I had, since they've got the schedule next year, is all but carved in granite already, and they're not changing. It's going to be 4 straight, Ryder Cup, no break. So it's obviously Armageddon is at hand with regard to the top guys, and you're going to have a potential of probably all 12 U.S. players sitting out time, and probably 6 of the European players will be over here in that mix too. So that's a pretty healthy chunk of your top 50 in the world taking a knee at some point along the line. My suggestion was, for next year alone, if you finish on, say, the top 10 in points before the reseed, you've got to take a week off. You've got to announce when it is, stick to it, and then you can market your tournament accordingly. And that way, when you're driving down I-55 in Chicago, like 2 weeks ago at the BMW, and you see the big Phil Mickelson billboard up there, it's not humiliating because he didn't manage to show up that week.
Well, the other way to handle this, I think if you cut 3 events, you're going to start doing away with that type of thing. The schedule is the hard part here. Fincham said that he doesn't like to start moving things around. But the other part is, let's start taking points away. You miss a cut, you lose points. You don't show up, you lose points. Let's award more points. Only 3 guys over the course of these 4 events played their way into the top 30, Tim Clark being one of them. That's not enough movement. I need to see traffic going both ways, to borrow a phrase from one of my colleagues. I want to see guys dumping in and dumping out. I want to see, that Cinderella story. Bob Hines outplayed 90% of the field at the New York event, and he was out.
How about everybody was talking about Rich Beam after the first week, finished 7th and qualified for the next week. Well, the next week he shot one of the low early rounds. He had to finish second the second week to get to the BMW. I would propose that we retain the top 10 stipulation that you use all year long in regular tour events, where if you're not otherwise exempted to the next week's field, you get in. That gives you your Cinderella guy.
Sure. No,
and then if you're so far down in the points you don't have any realistic chance of winning, you can at least continue to sort of climb up the ladder.
There was no Cinderella story. I mean, the system was set up that, all right, you wanted your top players, but when they started shopping this thing around at the beginning of the season, the Ponte Vedra types told us that, look, they wanted Cinderella to go along with this, and there's no way to do it mathematically. Those guys are all but eliminated.
All right, we have to wrap this thing up real quick. Success then? Yes?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. On the field of play, it was as good as they could have hoped for. How do you beat Tiger winning 3 of them?
Doesn't Tiger need to win?
I'm going to give it a thumb and a half. I think there's things that need to be tinkered with, but yeah, thumb and a half.
All right, that wraps it up for this edition of Preferred Lives. For Steve Elling and Rex Hoggard, I'm Jay Coffin. We'll see you next time. Thanks for catching up with us on YouTube. We may not be as entertaining as Britney Spears at the Video Music Awards, but we're still good nonetheless, so catch up with us on Golfweek.com.